Hello and welcome to my video for the Fallout-inspired Brotherhood of Steel watch. Yes, this watch is huge, and no, I don't really care. So let's go over it. First and foremost, let's start with turning the sucker on. Now, if you notice, turning it on seems to do absolutely nothing. Why is that? Well, you see, it turns out there is a slight glitch with this. These switches here are all wired up to the main processor inside. Turns out, if this one is not in this position when you first boot up, the processor sees it as a halt instruction and just sits there waiting and does nothing. I could have fixed this by ordering new boards, but then I realized this is incredibly janky. Gear from the Fallout universe is also incredibly janky, so I decided to leave it because I thought it was funny. So, now with that switch in the correct position, let's try turning the sucker on and going over its functionality. So the first thing you'll notice when it turns on is that it's going to ask us, is it currently daylight savings time where we are? I'm having it ask this because in no way is it easy to programmatically tell if it's currently daylight savings time where you are. The dates aren't really set in stone, and not every place on Earth, adheres to it, as they should not, because it's the stupidest idea ever. Anyway, to say yes, we are in daylight savings, we flip the top switch over, and it will do, yes or no. Flipping the bottom switch will turn on the GPS, which it'll attempt to connect to the satellites above, get the time in UTC, and then figure out what time zone we're in based off our coordinates. And using the magic of video editing, I am going to fast forward to when we're outside, because there's no way in hell this is going to pick up a signal indoors. As you can see, once it is able to pick up the GPS satellite signal, it plays the Fallout 4 theme song as well as sets the current time. Also, which is not noticeable at first, it sets the date. And because I never know, it's nice to be able to have the day of the week as well. So, let's go over some of the basic features for it. So the first thing is I really wanted this watch to look very, very retro. Like gear that actually comes out of the Fallout universe. So, for example, the display inside of here is an old HP display that was very common in the 70s and discontinued in the 90s. Today they are extremely difficult to find. These mechanical switches on the side here are also supposed to be reminiscent of computers from the 1970s, specifically something like the Altar 8800. So let's go over what these actually do. So these basically control the entire watch. The switch at the bottom is actually the command mode switch. So by flipping that, the watch is now in command mode, where it's waiting for us to input a certain pattern on these top switches and flip back to accept. Obviously, mode 0 is the time. These switches here are actually binary, so this represents the number 1, 2, and 4. So, for example, if I wanted to go to, say, mode 4, which does audio functionality, I would switch 4 over and go back. Now we're in audio mode. Switch 4 also happens to be the sub-mode switch. So, mode 1 for the audio. Wow, that was disappointing. Mode 1 is the Fallout theme song, which we've already heard. Mode 2 is a simulated Geiger counter because, well, why wouldn't you have that in something from Fallout? So, let's go over some of these other physical things that we see. This knob here is actually just a threaded screw, 3D printed, to hold the case together. This dial, or directional pad, as it is often mistaken as, is actually a directional indicator for the compass. Yes, this watch has a compass, because, Fallout, survivability, why not? That is mode 1. There are 2 modes, one that turns on the lights for the directional thing, and one that just displays heading information. I'll do the fancy one for the demo. So, there is a slight bug with the way it currently displays heading information. If the numbers are smaller than 100, it prints them incorrectly. But other than that, I'm fixing it. But as you can see, it'll light up whichever direction is north, as well as giving you heading information that, for the most part, is very accurate, minus a small display glitch. What other modes or features does this have? Well, it has a built-in battery charger, a USB, just plugs right into the side. It has the GPS over here, which not only will, help us set the time, but will also be able to display current coordinates, both in raw format and formats that Google Maps can read. It has a laser, which is fun. So if I switch this over to the armed mode, it has two things basically that they can do to communicate with things. One of them is an IR LED, which is up here, which is used to turn TVs on and off. The second item is the laser, which if I angle this right, there we go. Because why wouldn't I put a laser on things? Lasers are awesome. Let's see, other than that, this watch also is equipped with a stopwatch, countdown timer, manual power setting modes to make sure the battery lasts longer, which I will do now because this does not actually last as long as I'd like. I can turn the display off with mode 1 or sub-mode 1 in case I'm in a movie theater or someplace where that's just going to be super distracting, or I can put it in the chip in specific power modes, which I will do now because low power ends up saving about 2 hours from the battery life. Anyway, this is the base project, and I'm actually pretty happy with the results. Took about 2 years to do because I don't know what I'm doing, and it was a good learning experience.